What up, Bulls Nation? We have yet another live CHGO Bulls emergency podcast coming your way right now. The Bulls up and at 'em early this morning on NBA's trade deadline day, sending Ayo Dosunmu and Julian Phillips to the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll talk about the trade, the return, and what happens next. What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome in to CHGO Bulls Emergency Podcast. CHGO Bulls Emergency Pods brought to you by our friends at Xfinity. Imagine that. Coming to you live on Thursday morning ahead of our trade deadline special show at 1:30 Central Time. The Bulls got an early jump. I'm Peck, Bulls_Peck, joined by my guy, Will Gottlieb, Will_Gottlieb. Hopefully our guy, Big Dave, will hop on with us momentarily, but we wanted to get rolling. Shout out to Sarah, the one and only queen of the controls, running things behind the scenes. Shout out to Steven and Chloe for their support help as well. These emergency pods are fun, but take a lot of hands and lifting together to make them happen. We have another Bulls trade in this week of deadline chaos, Goat. Shams just a little while ago this morning tweeting that the Bulls are trading Ayo Dosunmu to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then he left us hanging on the edge of our seats for a while in between tweets, almost 8 minutes before we got the additional details of the trade. Minnesota sending Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and 4 second-round picks to the Chicago Bulls for not only Ayo Dosunmu, but sending the Bulls' former second-round pick, Julian Phillips, along with him to the T-Wolves. Thanks for joining us, Bulls Nation. Hit that like button if you're hanging out with us in that YouTube chat. Let us know your thoughts on the trade. We'll get to as many as we can. Goat, initial reaction to this one, my friend.
Well, there was also, just before we get into this one, a trade last night where the Bulls sent Dalen Terry for Gershon Yabusele to the Knicks in another confusing move, which we can get to. Wow. I mean, this is a systematic tearing down of the roster. This is pretty surprising. I thought that they would keep Ayo. I was kind of under the impression that they wanted to keep him long-term and that it would take an offer that really blew them away in order to move off of him. And it's hard to say that this is a blow-away offer. I'm sure that when we talk to Arturas later today, he will say that he got a former top 10 pick, which he did in Dillingham, in Colin Sexton, in Jaden Ivey. But this collection of young, small, scoring guards who are going to struggle defensively it's hard to see the vision with this. So I once upon a time really liked Leonard Miller in the draft. I thought he was like a first-round guy, has not been able to break in with the Timberwolves. And, I don't know what's going to happen with him with the Bulls. I think it's worth a shot. But, man, to not get a first-round pick, and frankly, the Timberwolves didn't have any to offer. And so ideally you're getting Johan Berenger, their young center, who was the 18th overall pick in this year's draft. To not get him, I think is a real disappointment, especially with how guard heavy this roster is. But I think it just goes to show that this roster is still very much in flux. I don't know who's going to be here long-term. You've still got 6 guards that all are going to need minutes. You're going to have to evaluate these guys. So that's just like, what are the Bulls doing? And then on the Ayo piece of it all, I mean, man, this guy was fantastic. He was really coming into his own as a player, having an incredible year, his best season ever, emerged as a key voice and leader in the locker room, along with Kobe White. Both of those guys now gone. It seems like the soul has been kind of ripped out of this team. And I wonder what it's going to look like the rest of the way. I wonder what more moves are going to happen in the next 5 or 6 hours here. But just a surprising destruction of this roster when it seemed like Arturas was feeling like he was on the right path with some of these guys. And so really, when you think about who is left long-term, I just don't know the answer to that other than maybe Madison Giddey.
Yeah, people sounding off in the chat. USMCDD saying these trades have been all downhill since the Kevin Huerter trade. Jay Mora, why is AK still employed? T. Hughes, what are we doing with 15 second-round picks? Yeah, AK went from hating second-round picks to collecting every single one.
There's only 14. Okay?
What's that?
Only 14 second-round picks.
Only 14. Only 14. Moon Matarai saying, look at the bright side. At least we still have P. Will. Oh, wait, he sucks. Bulls need an intervention, says Ann Coco. Yeah, honestly. And then Red Panda Gaming saying, at least get Johan Beringer. And, Dave and I in a mini pod the other day, last week ago, we're talking about different iterations of a possible Kobe to Minnesota trade. And, it was like Conley was always involved because of matching salaries, but it was like one of them was TSJ, one of them was Beringer, and one of them was Dillingham. And here we have the Dillingham result. But I think Dave and I both felt, and I think most Bulls fans would have agreed, that Beringer would have been the highest upside pull in that trade. But we also heard that Minnesota was not really eager to let that young prospect of theirs go. To me, this is a huge win for the Timberwolves. Like, Ayo is going to come in and immediately make a positive impact on that team that's been to, consecutive Western Conference Finals, looking to contend. He can be a great backcourt, pair with Ant. He can also, as we know, come off the bench and be one of the best bench players in the league playing that role. And we've, over the last couple of weeks, as we've gotten closer and closer to this deadline, been saying, if you're going to sell high on Ayo, you better sell high on Ayo, because he seemed to be, at this stage of this season, the player on AK's roster with the most trade value as we approached today, and understood that you weren't going to get a first-round pick for Kobe, or certainly it seemed impossible. Maybe you could pry one for Ayo because he was playing that well. And I'm sorry, but you just mentioned Dillingham, another undersized guard on a roster that now apparently has a dozen of them. And, Leonard, we'll see, 4 more second-round picks. This, to me, does not say selling high on Ayo. If this is the return for Ayo, I may as well have preferred keeping him past the deadline and trying to find a deal to make him, closer to a Bulls lifer, as I know Big Dave and a lot of Bulls fans wanted him to be. This one hurts a lot because I just not loving the return here.
Yeah, and I get that. I will say, I don't think Arturas is going out there and saying, I'm going to take the third best offer for these guys. Like, I think he's probably getting the most that he can. It's difficult to see what the kind of end goal with this is, because I don't view most of these guys that they're getting as the end goal. You talk about like Simons and being excited about Sexton. It's like, those are good players. I just don't see them on the team longer term. And so when you're collecting all these guys that you don't figure into the long-term plans, it's hard to really evaluate what this is. In a vacuum, I tend to agree with you. I think Beringer I would have felt good about getting Beringer back in the deal, because he's at least a young center who can help you like build and grow, and could be a rim roller for Josh Giddey and start to make sense of this roster. And Dillingham, I really liked him in the draft, but just these small guards are not valuable right now around the league. And then on top of that, he's really struggled. Like, I think there's value in going after some of these second draft guys that have fallen out of favor, but it's almost as if they're retroactively going through a rebuild and picking up a bunch of guys that kind of busted in the draft. I mean, this is not like there's so much upside with Jaden Ivey right now. He's had 2 major leg injuries in the last year, and you're going to have to pay him. Rob Dillingham has shown that he's not really ready to impact the game at a high level. It's not to say he can't do it, but I don't see what kind of ups. I think a lot of the value in the draft is like this untapped, undiscovered upside. And now that some of that upside has been discovered, it's just, there's less of it. So I don't think this is like a disaster of a return. I'm just more surprised that they actually moved him. And I'm more confused about where they're going with the rest of this. Now, the second round pick stuff, I think, is really interesting in its own right, because Arturas has never really valued those. You can go back to the Andre Drummond deal that never happened with the 76ers, who had offered at least 2 second round picks for him, and he wanted to keep them to make a play and push. Clearly, that is not the agenda. But then you look at the Dalen Terry trade and bringing in Yabusele, who has money into next year. Presumably, you're doing that to play him, and presumably you're trying to play him because he can help you win. And why are you trying to add guys that can help you win, especially when there's money into next year, without getting some of these picks? So they've got a ton of small guards, as a lot of people are saying in the comments. and just very limited or lack of direction that at least is clear to me at this point. I would not be surprised if the Bulls consolidate 5 or 6 of these second-round picks plus Dillingham and try to go get a Yves Missy or another young. Like, I think there's still plenty of moves to be made. I just don't really know where they're going with this right now because, yeah, they're collecting young upside guys, but the league is showing that they're not really valuing them. And so how are you planning to flip those into more value? It remains to be seen. I'm trying to reserve judgment until the buzzer sounds. I just don't really get it so far.
Raz Cole 5 in the chat saying Sexton 6'1", Dillingham 6 foot, Trey 6 foot, Simon 6'3", Ivy 6'3". Like, who the F is defending the league shooting guards at 6'6"? Josh Giddey? Yes, the answer to all your defensive problems can clearly always be the great Josh Giddey. Shout out to NH Hawk 40 who threw us a super chat saying, how do we get 0 first-round picks or even a solid center for Ayo? Acme need to get out of here, embrace the tank. We ain't winning for a while. Chop Me threw us a 38 super chat saying, as a member of the Giddey committee, please get him out of here. I'm sure he can land the team some more second-round picks. Matty Rice 12 with a super chat saying, soulless team. That's exactly what you want in a tank. Billy probably could be out too. I love all these moves. Trade Giddey too while you're at it. And Woofio in the chat with the super chat saying the Bulls betrayed another Chicagoan. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say betrayed. Like, look, Ayo, obviously it meant a lot to him to play for his hometown team, Morgan Park native, a second round pick who obviously also has a huge fandom from his time, with the Fighting Illini, like fan favorite and probably will be for a long time, but he's a competitive dude. You think Ayo could see the writing on the walls of what this team was and what this team might be in the coming years? You think he's okay with maybe going and playing on a championship contending level team in Minnesota? Because I think he's okay with that. Minnesota ain't too far away from home. Like, I think Ayo's fine. I think AK betrayed Bulls fans more than he betrayed Ayo Dosunmu with this particular trade.
Absolutely. I mean, he's traded away a lot of the guys that the Bulls fan base has really gravitated towards. And again, it's interesting because he's just never wanted to do that. For so long, it was like, from Chicago, Modest Buzelis, from Chicago, Ayo Dosunmu, from North Carolina. It's like, these are guys that I think the Bulls fan base really wanted to love and invest in. And unfortunately, they just weren't good enough. Like, I think it does come down to that they have to move on from guys to put themselves in a better situation. You can't just hold on to a bunch of players that are good but not great and expect to ever become a great team. So I understand wanting to move on from them, especially when these big payday decisions are coming up. But why not do this a year ago? Why not do this 2 years ago? Why not do this 3 years ago? Why not do this 4 years ago when all of us were talking about this being an inevitability? It doesn't track, and that's why you're seeing the return turn into what it is. And that, I think, is what makes it look worse, right? Is that you're not getting any clear, we can build with this type of players. Maybe Ivy and Dillingham turn into that. I think that's probably the closest to what you're looking at. But why do you need 4 small guards on the roster when you're trying to build with positional size and when you're trying to turn Modest into a 3 because you want to have him have some more ball handling responsibilities? It just doesn't really seem like all the goals and agendas are lining up. And that's fine if there are still moves to be made. And like I said, I expect more moves to be made. But right now, it just is like this island of misfit toys that doesn't really have a clear, concise vision. And we may not even get that today. I think, frankly, this is going to look a lot different. We could talk about some of the cap implications. I don't think this is going to even start to look settled until going into next year. So, look, we've been pleading for trades. They've made, I think it was 4 trades between 2021 and 2025. They've made 6 so far this week. So they're making moves. I just don't know where those moves are leading them. And I don't know that we're going to get answers to that by the end of the day. Hopefully it happens by the end of the season.
Well, if you're looking for some optimism in the chat, I've found some. Maurice Drake saying, why is everyone so mad? This is a great trade. Dillingham is going to be a hooper with Billy, and Miller is a very underrated forward. He's just stuck behind Randall and Naz Reid. Call out King, meanwhile, in the chat saying, pumped to get Rob. Ariel We are a laughingstock of the NBA. I'd rather be Sacramento at this point. That's harsh. Joshua Mazzy, meanwhile, saying zero understanding of value. I think that's the most striking thing about this is, as you were talking about, the waiting and waiting until waiting too late part. And this is the return you're getting on the players that you have valued to the point of overvaluing and holding on too long to a roster that was perennially just going to the play-in tournament to say, hey, we went to the play-in tournament. With that, let us knock out a quick ad, shout out a couple of sponsors, then we'll keep this emergency pod rolling on the other side with a few more thoughts. We could also touch a bit more on the Dalen Terry trade from late last night as well. In the meantime, hit that like button. It's free, and throw us a super chat if you're feeling like it. We appreciate those as well. Here's some ads.
Whether it's on the field, on the court, or in your financial life, the best teams win by collecting 14 delivering excellence at every level. At Old National Bank, we believe every play matters. So from everyday checking to long-term planning, getting those draft picks in order, clearing out financial flexibility so you can make a big play in restricted free agency, and commercial banking, Old National Bank's team is here to build momentum and help you move the ball forward. And it all starts with a plan tailored for you by professionals you trust. From simple tasks to bigger financial moments, you can count on us to create and coordinate your needs with steady, knowledgeable guidance that brings clarity, confidence, continuity to each step. It's a partnership designed to help you feel supported, not just today, but well into the future. And boy, could the Bulls use that. So whether you are celebrating a win, a rebuild after a tough loss, or gearing up for whatever comes next, Old National Bank's got your back with tools, insights, and expert crew that's always in your corner. Old National Bank, member FDIC, where relationships and results matter.
CHGO Bulls also brought to you by Game Day Men's Health. As a man, are you starting to feel like you have low energy throughout the day? You do not have the same motivation and drive. Seeing the scale move up while the hair falls out, muscles tightening up, that might all be the result of low testosterone. It's very common as you age and something you should be mindful of. Whether it's peak performance or becoming a better father, better husband, or better man, Game Day Men's Health wants to support every man's health journey through personalized care tailored to your goals. Very quick process. You'll be in and out in just an hour. Personal care from a family and locally owned business. Extremely high success rate that'll have you feeling better and have more energy with testosterone, vitamin supplements, weight loss, and hair loss treatments. You can be anywhere from 27 and up in age. It doesn't matter. Start your best life with Game Day Men's Health. Check out locations in Skokie, Naperville, Libertyville, and more, or scan the QR code to find one closest to you. That QR code, boom, on your screen right there. Go to GameDayCHGO.com to find locations closest to you. As we roll on here, CHGO Bulls Emergency Pod Part 3. I don't know. CHGO Bulls Emergency Pod is also presented by our friends at Xfinity. Imagine that. So before I do also want to get a few more of your thoughts on the whole Dalen Yabusele thing from last night. But before we move on from Ayo, Minnesota, does it make you feel better at all comparing this, Dillingham being perhaps the big piece of return here for the Bulls? The fact that he is still just halfway into his 4-year rookie scale contract and that there's maybe a longer runway for AK. Dear God, why AK? But for the Bulls to evaluate this young player, they exercise his club option for next season, which is at, just shy of $6.9 million. There's another club option in 27-28 for $8.7 million. And then you're looking at restricted free agency potentially in the summer of 2028 for Dillingham, whereas a lot of these other young guards that you've traded for and are still here, could be on the move between now and 2 o'clock later today, but are on shorter timelines of we need to decide after a 30-game sample size whether or not we want to keep this guy and therefore pay this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bulls have to have a roster full for next year, right? Like they can't just have everybody on an expiring contract. So getting these guys at low numbers, Yabusele is going to be $5.7 million player option. I imagine he picks up unless he just balls out this year and can get a better deal. You've got Leonard Miller now into next year at $2.4 million. And I like Leonard Miller. I think that is a sneaky good pickup in this deal on someone who could be, a nice ball handling forward on another G League Ignite guy. Rob Dillingham, you mentioned. I just don't know what happens with like the Ousmane Jangs of the world. And I don't think Sexton or Simons will be around. But even if you wipe their cap sheets, Zach Collins' cap sheet, cap holds, You keep Ivies, whose is $30 million, which is pretty big. You wipe Ousmane Dieng, but you keep Dillingham, Yabusele, and Leonard Miller. You go into next season with about $36 million in cap space. So this does open up a little bit more money and flexibility for the Bulls, which they needed. Before this trade, they had cut it down basically to $29 million. And that's before you factor in the first round pick cap hold. So between the first round pick, maybe one or two of these second round picks, we still don't know the details of what they're getting back from the Timberwolves here. They're going to be able to fill out the roster with some cheap players, and that's going to allow them to throw a bigger offer sheet at a restricted free agent. So that's all well and good. I just don't know, like they talked about the 9 or 10 good players thing. Right now, I don't think they have that. They have 6 guards, Modis and Jalen Smith, and then a bunch of flyers. And, that could turn into something. It might not. I think it's still like overarching the right direction, right? Is to get younger, to get some upside guys to move off of the players that you do have and set yourself up for the future. I just don't know if there's like a super high upside guy in the mix here. So we'll see. Maybe they can get Jaden Ivey at a really team-friendly deal, and that allows them to, build around him and Giddey both making, and then he takes off, and that allows them to put themselves in a better position. Maybe they get a lot worse in the rest of the season, and they get lucky in the draft, and then things start to fall into place. But right now, like I said, it's just such a mishmash of players because you have so many guards. You do bring in a couple of forwards, Dieng, Leonard Miller, Yabusele, that can help balance out the roster. And maybe that helps move Modis down to the 3. But with 6 guards, it's just hard to imagine how Billy doesn't have to play 3 or 4 of them at the same time. And then that pushes Modis out of position. So I think everything should be about Giddey and Modis right now. Maybe you see a little bit more from Ivy or Dillingham, and they kind of establish themselves as a long-term piece. But they're going to have to do some work to get off of some more of these guards and just balance out the roster. So I do not think they're done. But like I said, I don't know that we're going to get the full answer to any of this stuff by the end of the day. I think a lot of it will have to take place during the offseason.
Joker in the chat bringing up a Bulls fan classic, saying the Bulls don't even know how to tank right. LOL. And look, as you just did a quick rundown of the roster and who's going to be playing these last 30 games. I saw a lot of Bulls fans on Twitter yesterday saying, like, this doesn't necessarily seem like a steer towards a tank. I don't see the roster as being worse than when we started making all these trades. I disagree. Even before this Ayo trade this morning, losing Kobe and Vooch, particularly in those earlier trades, and bringing back what you brought back, that's a worse team. So now it's definitely a worse team, but you are stuck in a ugly situation where I don't know if it was AK's stubbornness or just an absolute refusal to tank until now, this being a soft tank or a subtle tank, whatever you want to call it. You won, almost half your games through a larger than half portion of the season. You are so far behind in those tankathon standings, and I don't think you're going to catch most of those teams that are ahead of you in said tankathon standings. This would have been a great year to tank. We all know those names at the top of this year's draft class. So
would have last year.
Yeah, as last year would have been the same case. And a lot of Bulls fans were calling for a teardown of this, if not a year ago, or like before a year ago. So that's the part of this that's really tough to swallow. Quickly, we got a couple other.
Let's think about how this.
Yeah, go ahead.
You want to do super chats? I was just going to say.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. Shout out to Les Pronto who said, fire AK, fire Donovan, Garpax better. Why do we always need to bring Garpax back up, guys? Yeah, they had some hits, they had some misses. It was time to go.
Two wrongs don't make it right.
We can look forward. We don't need to look backwards. Woofio with a $2 super chat saying, Evitt, start all our new guys the next game together. Well, the next game together is in Toronto in like 8 hours. So I'm guessing that most, if not none of these guys will be suiting up for tonight might get interesting. Also, I saw another side move. They officially signed Mac McClung to that.
That just might be for tonight, honestly.
Could just be for tonight, vacated by Emmanuel Miller in that first trade that they made for those second rounders, because they might just need a warm body for tonight's game. So there's that. All right, go. What were you about to say?
I was just going to think about like how the Bulls factor into the Eastern Conference. Like, I agree they're not going to tank. They're not going to present as a team that's tanking. And I don't expect them to, or even think they necessarily need to. I do think that they're going to take a big step back in terms of talent. The big man depth on this team, like you can't sit here and say Vooch was not holding the floor up, almost by himself to like a 32, 33 win team. And then you add Ayo to the mix, who's been sensational this year. Herter hit a game winner. Kobe obviously has had a down year relative to his standards, but he's still been really good. Yes, you bring back Sexton and Simons. I just think that they're going to have to start playing some of these younger guys. And when you do that, inevitably you take a bit of a downswing. So I do think that they're going to be not as good, but I don't think that means they're going to stop being competitive. So I think they'll probably end up winning some games against other tanking teams just by virtue of them not really bottoming out the way that these other teams are. You look at the standings. I mean, the Kings are a disaster. And for anybody that thinks Billy Donovan is not a good coach, he may not be an elite coach, but the Kings basically have the same team the Bulls have. And the Bulls won 39, 40 games every year with that group. And the Kings are 12-40. So I think that speaks to Billy Donovan's ability to get the most out of his guys. You look at the Pelicans are 13-40 right now. Pacers, 13 wins. Nets, 13 wins. Wizards, 13 wins. Utah, 16. Utah and Washington both have top 8 protected picks they're trying to keep. Dallas just traded Anthony Davis, and they've lost 5 in a row. I think they're going for the draft in the only year that they have their pick until 2030. The Milwaukee Bucks are clearly trying to tank and get the best pick that they can because they know Giannis is on the way out and because they know that the best they can do in this draft is second if the New Orleans Pelicans pick jumps up to first and it will go to Atlanta. I think that's where and then Memphis just traded Jaren Jackson Jr. Like they're definitely going to be bottoming out too. So that's 9 teams right there. I think the Bulls could jump ahead of Portland. I think the Hornets will jump them and push the Bulls out of the play-in. I think Clippers will be better than the rest of the way. Atlanta, Orlando, Miami. I think all those teams will be better, but you're talking about a team that's already banged 24 wins. You're talking about a team that probably is not going to get into the same category with Memphis and Dallas, let alone Brooklyn and Washington. So you're looking at, the 10th best odds, which is where they've been this whole time. So I think they needed to move off these guys. I think collecting second-round picks is a good thing. Obviously, the return, you'd hope for more. I just don't know that it really guarantees them anything in terms of the lottery. If they wanted to do that, they would have had to start at the beginning of the season, the 5-0, 6-1 start, and then another 5-game win streak, and then another 4-game win streak. Like that really hurts you here. And that's not even including last year when you had Cooper Flagg and Con Knipple and VJ Edgecombe and Ace Bailey and all these guys that have been really good players. And you basically don't have a rookie out of that draft, even though you had a lottery pick. So we'll see what Noah looks like. We'll see what some of these young guys turn into. This is a long road ahead. I do not think that this team is going to be very good. I don't think they're going to be very bad either, at least this year. But then you start to think about next year and what the Washington Wizards just did, bringing in Trae Young and Anthony Davis. I think they will jump them. You think about the Pacers getting Tyrese Halliburton back. I think they will jump them. You look at, even Brooklyn, I think could be a lot better. There's another team in the East that I'm forgetting about right now. Hornets, I think, are going to be great next year with Kobe and Con Knipple and Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball and whatever else they do. I think the Bulls could just be really bad by accident next year. And I think that's much worse than being bad on purpose.
Whew. Yeesh. That's a tough pill to swallow, but I don't think you're wrong. Shout out to our pal Find A, who's making great use of that hat throwing emoji in the chat. If I didn't have my over the ear headphones on right now, I'd be right there with you. I see a lot of people making jokes in the chat about like, hey, okay, well now can we use our 22nd round picks to get off of Patrick Williams' contract? Can we use our 172 second round picks to land Zion or Giannis? And speaking of, as you just said a few moments ago. The belief here is that there will be more moves, or at least another move between now and 2:00 for AK, as you try to make something else of this roster and figure out with all of these guys who just arrived via trade, which ones you want to keep for at least a third of a season to take a look at. However, I still don't think that part of this grandiose plan where AK is making a move over here and starting a little fire over here and stoking this one, that it's going to end up with us saying on our trade deadline show, oh my God, I can't believe Zion Williamson is a Bull, or oh my God, I can't believe Giannis is a Bull.
They're just so far away from being good enough to warrant that right now.
Right. You traded off the rest of your semi-decent talent. So then why would you then go out big game hunting. Like, to me, those two things don't make any sense coinciding with one another. Hate to burst the bubble of some Bulls fans who still might be hoping for that over the next 4 hours now as we reach 10 a.m. Central Time. But, that then begs the question, okay, if not that, then what moves are there other than trying to just balance out the roster a little bit between backcourt guys and wings and bigs, just for the sake of having a feasible rotation to play with for the final 30 games of the season, and then we'll just deal with this mess when we get to the offseason. Like, what other motivating factors do you think are inspiring AK's moves? Right, I know that's a loaded question to try and wrap your head around what the hell AK's thinking right now.
I mean, I think they're going to continue trying to get these high drafted guys who fell out of favor with their teams. Tari Eason has been a name that has come up a bunch, but he hasn't fallen out of favor with his team, which is why I think the Bulls are struggling to get him. Yves Missi, I think, is another name that you could see in a Bulls uniform before the end of the day, because now they've collected so many second-round picks. The problem is you're running out of players of value to ship out. So maybe a team like the Pelicans really values Rob Dillingham. They just drafted Jeremiah Fears. They have DeJounte Murray. They have Jordan Poole. So I don't really see that. But could you entice them with 5 or 6 second-round picks to go along with it? That starts to balance out the roster. It starts to give you a little bit more clarity about what the roster could look like beyond this year. Other than that, I don't really know. I think my guess is that they did these trades thinking, okay, if we can turn Kobe into Sexton and 3 second-round picks, and then we can turn Sexton into something and 2 more second-round picks, now you've gotten 5 second-rounders for Kobe, and that's something. I mean, I don't think these second-rounders are nothing. Like that, we should clarify that. It's not like these are nothing. So it's good to collect them, but I think there are things that you more turn into other things as opposed to making all these selections. But I think that's kind of the vision. Same thing with Vooch. Can you turn Simons into something else? And so now you've gotten that high Pelicans pick in the second round plus Simons and whatever you get for him for Vooch. I think that they're just doing this like gradual flipping of the assets so that they can continue to collect things along the way, because there aren't just any of these moves that make sense right away for them. And I said this yesterday, I think that's a credit to them. Like they don't have the answers yet, but they're trying to work their way. They're showing their work along the way on the test. And so I think that can be a good thing if they continue to make moves, and I expect that they will.
Shout out to Sam Galoy, who threw us a $10 super chat saying, just woke up to this. I'm just sad, man. Ayo's my guy. I'm not sure this was enough value for him. They're not giving us any reason to watch this team. I might be out on this team for the near future. And speaking of not enough value for Ayo, Kenneth, Georgia, in the chat asking, why do Bulls fans think we should get first rounders for all of our players? LOL, not realistic at all. And I think that that's something that can be kind of clarified, because I've seen a lot of discourse about that on Bulls Twitter over the last 48 hours or so. It depends on the player that's getting shipped out. I did not think it was remotely possible for the Bulls to get a first for Ayo. Maybe a heavily protected, for Kobe at this point. Maybe a heavily protected first, but I wasn't counting on it. I was thinking young player and maybe a couple of second round picks. That's basically, what you end up getting for Kobe. Ayo, I thought, was the closest outside shot they had at getting a first round pick at this deadline, trade part of the season, assuming that they were not moving Josh and they were not moving Modest, that Ayo was the closest chance you had at landing a first, or at least a better, a better return that I think we feel this return for Ayo is. But some of it is like Bulls fans seeing what the Bulls front office sees. Some faction of the fan base, anyway, of this guy has X value across the league. You zoom out, you realize that player doesn't. And league trends change quickly. What's valuable as far as players, what's valuable as far as draft assets changes quickly. Everybody's keeping one eye on their books and trying to make moves for not tomorrow, but, tomorrow a year from now. And this is the ultimate price of waiting this long before deciding that what you've built ain't it. Because the longer you wait, the depreciation just sags and sags and sags to a point where you're talking about, and shout out to our guy, Steph No, who I saw a tweet of his yesterday, basically the top 6 guys in your rotation of your team 4 years ago, that at the All-Star break of the 21-22 season, was, tied for first in the East. All 6 of those guys are now gone. And you collectively, for all 6 of them, got a draft pick, and it was your own pick back in a trade that you had already traded that you needed the protections off of because you refused to tank. That is the long and short of it right there. That's why these returns are what they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that is kind of the sobering reality that the fans are going to have to come to just grips with. But I think it's also the sobering reality that Arturas has already come to grips with, which is that even though there weren't a lot of great offers out here for any of these guys, they did have to make moves. And I think that's true. It's unfortunate that they waited. It's unfortunate that they couldn't do better. I just don't know that there were those options available at this point. And that's, again, another lesson that they've now not taken from previous seasons with Caruso, with Lonzo, I don't know how much better they could have done for Zach. Honestly, I think that was a good trade. DeRozan, if they had just taken on the money, they would have gotten a pick. There's just so many opportunities for them to actually get real assets along the way, and they let this desire to be okay get in the way of that. And so now they don't seem to be doing that, which is, I think, a good thing. But it sets you up for a rebuild that we've been saying is inevitable for the last 4 years, and now you just don't have any premium assets to go about it with. So, how much different would this look if the Bulls had drafted Tijan Salon or Cody Williams instead of Modest? How much different would this look if they, if Giddey hadn't turned into a player, or he, wasn't really clearly a part of their future? And honestly, I don't even know how much that's going to be the case anymore, just with how much the roster has turned. I don't know. But just how much worse would it be if not for those guys? I think this would be a completely different story. So I think, again, the fact that they're doing this is the right move. I just don't think they've had the ability to set themselves up better, even if they wanted to.
We got a few more super chats. Woofio saying Zion will gain 100 pounds here. No Zion. People have made that joke about Chicago food and Zion plenty of times. I, again, don't think that's happening. Yuta, one of our diehards, with a super chat saying, pouring one out for all of those who got traded. Shout out to Yuta. And yes, indeed, pouring one out for all of our now former Bulls. Miguel Q with a super chat asking if we can amnesty P. Will like we did Boozer back in the day. No, I don't believe that is a realistic option that the Bulls are considering right now. I don't think AK has the stomach for it. I don't know if he could get approval to do so. There's nothing Jerry hates more than paying people, whether they be executives, coaches, or players, to walk away. Paying people to go away is not Jerry's thing. And who knows? Maybe AK still hasn't actually given up on Pat being a thing yet. It would not surprise me if he's like, okay, well, Patrick Williams, your role is about to increase with all of these trades and what we have left to work with for this 30 games. Let's see a 30-game sample size of Patrick Williams finally proving that I knew what I was doing when I drafted him. I think that's more likely than
he's going to get the ball
with Pat. Oh yeah. We're about to watch Pat try and cook, y'all. But for every time he tries to cook and Modest doesn't get to try to cook, there will be hats thrown.
I mean, but think about it: like Dillingham, Sexton, Simons, Ivy, Trey, Giddey, Patrick. Like, I don't even know how much this helps clear out space for Modest. So again, I think that more moves will be made. I just don't know. Like, I think they thought they would be able to get something for Sexton and Simons. I don't know that that's going to be able to be the case tonight or this afternoon. I do think that those guys won't be here long term, so that opens things up. But man, these next 30 games are going to be, frankly, just bizarre to watch. And this is the most the roster has changed since basically 2021. So it's going to be new, which I think is fun and exciting. But it's just like, whoa, what is the plan here?
Whoa. Yeah, it's going to be bizarro Bulls for the next 30 games. And who knows, maybe we'll get some entertainment out of it at least. Luis threw us a super chat saying, wait and see, said AK over the summer. Right, guys, LOL. Yeah, the AK's ask for patience thing. I'm sorry. I was out of patience when he asked for patience, and I am very eager to hear what he has to say today, which, speaking of, it is confirmed that he will meet with the media over Zoom because the team is up in Toronto for their road game tonight, shortly after that deadline passes. So we will talk about what AK had to say in said press conference in our pregame show later tonight before Bulls Raptors tips off at 6:30. So we'll have sort of a quasi AK press conference breakdown show at 6 p.m. Central after we hear from him. Ryan Smith threw us a $20 super chat. Appreciate you, Ryan, saying, I'm sure Billy doesn't want to go through a rebuild, hence him leaving OKC. So Duke's head coach, to me, seems more likely. Obviously, there's been a lot of chatter about, the Bulls eyeing Duke's coach if and when Billy decides to step down, because I don't think they'd fire him. As far as the whole leaving OKC thing, Billy loudly, publicly refuted that theory. Was it just last season, Goat, when they were answering questions about the roster turning over and going younger and stuff like that?
He's done it several times. I think what he wanted was to be involved in the process. What he wanted was to feel like he was part of the vision moving forward. But yeah, I'm very curious to ask him, and I expect reporters to do so tonight in Toronto, how he feels about this situation where the guys he's invested in for 5 years, for 6 years, are now gone. Like the development stories with Kobe and Ayo, two guys that he's really helped build up their career, are now gone. Vooch has just been such a steadying force for him. He's now gone. A lot of the time and effort that he has put into this group is not here anymore. And so I wonder how much he's going to feel invested or willing to reinvest with this team that is so in flux.
Yeah. All right. I think we can put a pin in the chat for now right here. We are going to be live again in studio starting at 1:30 Central Time.
I need some more coffee, Matt.
Yeah, dude, this one's out. Shout out to our guys at Trash Talk, by the way. Still got this mug of theirs. I need another cup of coffee and a shower, and we will hustle our way to the studio. We will start going live at 1:30, half an hour before that deadline at 2 p.m. Honestly, like, shout out to everybody who jumped on in the chat with us for yet another emergency pod on the morning of a weekday, a work day. All 1,200 plus of y'all, we appreciate you being here. Honestly, can we make the NBA trade deadline a national holiday already? Like, for us true sickos, like, wait, you get to pick your own national holidays. I think today needs to be one.
I've always said the deadline is my favorite day of the year. It's just the Bulls haven't done much for the last 4. So,
well,
they're probably making up for lost time.
We got plenty of action this year. We will talk to y'all very, very soon. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't done it yet. That's free. We appreciate the super chats. We appreciate the regular chats. We appreciate you tuning in each and every day, Bulls Nation. We love you. We'll talk to you very soon. Shout out to Sarah, Chloe, and everybody else who helped us behind the scenes launch this emergency podcast. All CHGO Bulls emergency pods brought to you by our friends at Xfinity. Imagine that. The two of us and Big Dave will talk to y'all this afternoon. See Red be good for now.
We all silly like the mayor.